Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Tim Evankovich. He is the CEO of Oasis Senior Advisors, a company based in Columbia, Maryland, that strives to simplify the search for senior care by providing knowledgeable resources and compassionate guidance. Under Tim's leadership, Oasis studies each family's needs to reduce the time and stress involved in finding alternative living options. Now, Tim has over 20 years of experience in the franchise business model, having previously served as president of the Cleaning Authority. He is also known for building a new brand in an ever-evolving industry and was elected to the International Franchise Association Board of Directors. His passion for helping seniors and their families underscores the core mission of Oasis Senior Advisors, which offers tailored, no-cost services. And I'm going to repeat that in case you missed it. The services they provide to older adults and their families are completely free of charge. They have been recognized for supporting thousands of clients with warmth and integrity. And Tim believes in creating a supportive environment where people can feel confident about the choices they make. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Now, results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, Tim Evankovich of Oasis Senior Advisors. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Happy to be here, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so before we talk about Oasis, Tim, I want to lay the groundwork here for your larger experience in the franchising world. You co-founded the Cleaning Authority, a home cleaning service, which started without the franchising model kind of attached to it, and then later transitioned to this model in 1994. What inspired you to make that shift?
Yeah, awesome question, because our initial thought in growing our business as a cleaning service, my partner and I, Steve Robinson, decided that we're going to kind of do the Starbucks model. You know, we'll open branch offices, put a manager in place, and kind of expand exponentially that way. And what we found with that was the challenges of just having a manager in there, not having skin in the game, so to speak, and the individual business would grow to a certain level and then just kind of stagnate because, again, that manager didn't have ownership, didn't take necessarily enough pride in the work that they were doing to continue to build it. And that's really what precipitated us looking at franchising, the franchise model. And we knew certainly it was a franchise business opportunity because there were already multitude of cleaning services in the business of franchising. Merry Maids, Molly Maids, The Maid, Maid Brigade, the list goes on and on. And so that's kind of where we backed up and retooled in about 93, 94 to decide, as opposed to putting managers in place, let's put franchisees that have ownership. And we felt that, you know, if we did it the initial way, the Starbucks side would be a big player in a little pond. But with franchising, we can be a bigger player in a bigger pond. So that, again, really precipitated us starting the franchising effort.
So there are other brands in the space that were already following this model. It was kind of a proof of concept for you guys. And you were seeing that it's kind of hard to get that amount of care and attention to detail at the local level when you're hiring managers. So you thought, let's go this ownership model because we'll get much better performance from them. So when you switched to this model, did you see immediate demand for the franchise offering, or was there something that maybe eventually helped to accelerate that growth?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, having not franchised anything prior to that, my partner and I thought, oh, we hang our shingle out there, we start franchising, and they will just beat down our door to become franchisees. That's how it works, right? Look at McDonald's, Subway. I mean, people can't wait to become franchisees of those. Well, I promise you, it does not work that way. You have no credibility in the marketplace. You have no clout, so to speak. And so we grew very slowly. I think the first year we picked up, 6 franchises, and the next year we did 12. I mean, we slowly built some momentum, but
And
oh my
before you
gosh.
kind of get to the future part, how were you finding those early franchises?
Beg, borrow, and steal. We did some franchise shows across the country that were somewhat helpful, but really what helped put us on the map were the franchise consultants, the brokers. We got into a couple of those groups early on, by 97, 98. And that's a kind of a third party endorsement saying, hey, candidate, we see what you're looking for. This opportunity may be the right fit for you. So that's really what helped propel our growth.
And I see here in 2003 that you had one other person at the time, and you managed to close 54 franchise deals in a single year. I mean, that's essentially one per week. What was that experience like? How did the two of you manage such incredible growth?
It was a crazy year, to say the least. And we had gotten some great momentum with, as I mentioned, some of those broker groups, and just got in a vein of a few of them that really liked our concept. And so it was a whirlwind. It really was. And when you're doing 54 deals, one a week, basically, that means you're talking to probably 400 or 500 candidates to get to that level. Some of the conversations don't last but 15, 20 minutes, but some people you take all the way through the process and then they don't say yes. But so yeah, it was it was a solid 15, 16-hour days, 5 days a week for that full year.
So the franchise consultants that are kind of giving you guys this credibility boost and making intros for you, what was it specifically about what you guys were doing that they liked as opposed to the other cleaning services that were also franchising?
Yeah, that's a great point, Anthony, because we felt if we were coming into this marketplace with already being crowded, we had to have something different, something unique to offer. And two things that we felt our cleaning process was unique, designed and developed by the original owner. But also we were the only one to have our own software, a software that would help manage the daily operations of the cleaning business with scheduling, which is the biggest challenge of people and houses, and that kind of balancing act that you have there. So that was a huge one.
What was it that was unique about your cleaning process?
Well, I would imagine every franchise cleaning business thinks they have the best one. I think what was unique in not just so much the process, but also how we paid our employees. We were one of, if not the only, that paid hourly to our employees for time in the house. Most others would pay a percentage or a flat fee per house, which the cleaners quickly realized the faster they go, the more money they make. Conversely, with us, the longer they're in the house, the more money they make. So it tended to give a much higher quality clean, kept our customers happier, less turnover of customer, and less turnover of employee.
Interesting. I like that, especially from a customer point of view. I mean, I would like the cleaners to be in and out as quickly as possible, but the biggest reason that I'm having them come in the first place is I want the place clean.
Yep.
Yeah. And so how do you align everybody's incentives? And that's a great way to do it. So then after about 25 years, you decided to step away from the cleaning authority. What led to that decision? How'd you know it was the right time?
Yeah, my partner and I both thought after 25 years it was time. We loved the business. And what I loved about the business more than anything was the gratification I got from the employee side, not just our support team within the cleaning authority, but the franchisees, and then also their employees, right? Giving them a great opportunity, a great work environment, kind of bringing them in, building them up, and sending them out. So that I really enjoyed. But after 25 years, everything gets a little bit tired. I think our brains got a little bit tired with new ideas and new energy, and we thought it was just a great time to transition.
So how did the Oasis Senior Advisors opportunity come about?
So you don't see the correlation between toilets and seniors?
Well, seniors
No.
use them, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure there was something else that took place here.
Yeah. In the last few years of the Cleaning Authority, my partner and I started also a little incubator company called Fran Forward, where we thought we could help young fledgling franchise organizations build and grow, build infrastructure, and kind of get them off on the right track. And from that, we met a couple from Michigan, and they were doing this concept. They had an in-home care company, but they were kind of doing this model of Oasis on the side. And they thought, we think it has legs. And so they came and visited with us. And we love the concept. We thought, well, this is fantastic. Not only is it hugely gratifying, but it's got a very philanthropic feel to it because all we do is help people, right? So my partner and I loved it. Well, they ended up not using us right away. They went away and tried to do it on their own and came back a year later and said, help. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to make this work. Would you be interested in buying us? And literally, my partner and I could not jump across the table fast enough to shake their hand.
Wow. Okay, so was the business at that time what it currently is today? You were helping advise families and seniors about different options that were available to them?
Yeah, I think the core business, that's what it was, right? Helping families and seniors through a difficult and challenging time. But now when we took it over, we changed the name, obviously, and started building our software. We're very technologically driven. We figure if the technology's out there to help not only our corporate entity, but our franchisees grow and build at a better rate, stronger, that's the way we need to go. And we have a huge, robust software platform that helps our franchisees manage every aspect of their business.
Say more about the tech, because you also mentioned this with the cleaning service, and we didn't really talk. We talked about what you were doing that was different sort of in the compensation model, but not how tech really comes into play to be like a competitive advantage for you guys.
Yeah, you can always find off-the-shelf software packages, Salesforce and things like that can help you in your business, but nothing ever seems to do everything you need it to do specifically for yours. So we built our own from the ground up, from scratch. And really what it does, it's a full management system for our franchisees. It's called Oasis IQ. And, over the course of, now 12, 13 years, 14 years of putting the software together, it really manages so many aspects of their business, from the scheduling, the biggest piece is helping navigate the senior to the right assisted living. It actually does a comparison. We have all of the communities, assisted living, memory care in our system, and it'll help match that senior to the appropriate one based on their needs, their activities, their daily living, their needs, location, where they want to live, all of that. So that's one of the biggest pieces for our franchisees in aiding them in running their business.
So help me understand. I'm fortunate that I haven't had to go through this process with either of my parents yet. Why is this such a cumbersome process? Can't I just go to Google and look for different options and visit these places and sort of figure it out on my own?
Certainly, you can, but you're going to have less hair than I have when you're done. So it is daunting, to say the least, because if you just think about any city, where you are in Ohio, there are hundreds of assisted living memory care communities within a 40, 50 mile radius. And so not all of them will accept certain care levels. Not all of them are appropriate for the senior's needs. And so that legwork that you're Googling through, you have to do all that. And again, that's the huge advantage of our advisors, where they know all the communities. They know what level of care they provide. They know which ones are very good, which ones are okay, and which ones we probably want to avoid. And so we cut through all of that process for you, always giving our seniors and their families choices, at least ideally 3 or 4 choices of these are the communities that best fit your senior. And then being very personalized, we're actually going to go tour with those families in the communities, kind of being their advocate of, what are the pros and cons, pluses and minuses of each of these, letting them make that final decision of what's going to be right for their senior.
Interesting. And we mentioned this in the intro, and I'd like to better understand. You're not charging the seniors or their families for your services. So how does that work? How do you guys make money?
So great question. So correct. Our services are free to the family and senior. What we have are agreements in place with the communities, assisted living, memory care, independent living, that say if we bring you a senior and they place in your community, you're going to pay us a one-time referral fee for that placement.
Does
So that's
that
how
end up
franchisees
does that end up making the stay or the service more expensive?
It does not, has no impact to the family whatsoever. Because what we're doing, we usually get a percentage of 1 month's room and care cost.
Okay.
That's how our franchisees get paid and make their money, and it's a pretty high fee. The average right now is probably around $4,000
Okay.
per placement. So
And this works out obviously well for the facility because those are fees that they would have spent, trying to, I don't know, run Facebook ads or radio ads or market in other ways. And so this is just,
exactly, it's
another
kind of a
customer
lost leader
acquisition
for them
fee.
to some extent. Yes, correct, Anthony.
Yeah. So really it's kind of a no-brainer. If you've got a loved one who's in this position, why not reach out to you guys? Like, it's not costing me anything. I'm going to learn a whole lot from the experts and find, sort of the best options that are in my area.
Absolutely. Why not? Like you said, it doesn't cost you a dime. And we've got the expertise to really walk them and hold their hand through this whole process, making sure they have a good experience, making sure we find that next perfect living environment for their mom or dad.
Can you think of maybe a specific story where you guys were, able to help somebody? Because I think anytime we can hear sort of specifics like that, it really helps us sort of wrap our heads around the impact that you're having.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got hundreds of stories, so it was tough to center in on one. But a situation that is not uncommon, unfortunately, where a sister is taking care of her brother, who is early onset dementia. So his memory isn't where it needs to be, and he's not able to do normal activities of daily living, showering, whatever it may be. And she's the sole caregiver. And after a while now, she's just kind of at her wit's end and can't take care of her brother anymore. However, he hasn't been clinically diagnosed yet with dementia. So memory care communities won't take him as a resident. So they won't take him. So she goes to the hospital and tries to check into the ER, but with nothing physically wrong with him, they won't admit him either. So this poor caregiver is just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place of, what do I do? I can't care for my brother. They won't take him here. So what happens is, fortunately, they got in touch with one of our advisors. And so the advisor went out and did all the legwork to find a community that had assisted living and a memory care side as well, that agreed, that said, yes, we'll take him into assisted living to start. And then once he gets diagnosed and we have that in place, then we can transition him into the memory care unit. But they were allowing him kind of to be part of the memory care unit while he was there. And without that advisor helping them, again, that poor caregiver has nowhere to turn. So a prime example of what our advisors can do to help these families through really difficult and challenging times.
What a frustrating situation you just described there. So when you talked about meeting with the founders of Oasis Senior Advisors, you and your partner couldn't jump across the table fast enough, I think was your words, when
Yep.
they offered to sell it to you. You guys, you had built very successfully your own franchise with the Cleaning Authority. You had been consulting with other franchise operations. So you sort of knew what to look for in terms of this could work, this couldn't work. What specifically had you so excited about this particular model?
Yeah, great question. And I think it was what we really fell in love with was the idea of how many families and seniors we're going to be able to help, right? Not personally, but through our franchise system. And that was just so gratifying to know that we're actually going to do something that is going to give back, to make a difference in people's lives. long term. And, seeing where it is now after, 10, 11 years or so, the amount of seniors and families that we help on a daily, monthly, annual basis is staggering. And it just is such a great feel good franchise. So yeah, that's one of the reasons we couldn't shake their hand fast enough.
So did you kind of follow the same playbook from the cleaning authority in terms of how to scale? You had the relationships with these franchise advisors, and that was sort of the big unlock?
Yep, absolutely. And fortunately, because of our track record in the past and how we built a successful franchise, we had some good legs going into it with those brokers. They knew what we'd done in the past, and so that certainly helped propel our growth at a much more rapid pace.
Was that scaling and that growth pretty smooth sailing, or was there a bump in the road along the way that you guys had to figure out?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I say there weren't always bumps in the road. There were, when we first started scaling the model, we had an idea of what that franchisee would look like, who was our ideal candidate. And over the course of the first few years, that really changed dramatically to who we were looking for, right? It had to be somebody that certainly loved people, wanted to have that opportunity to give back and make a difference in people's lives, had to be personable. And so that caring type, empathetic person is who we found out really did well in business and had a good business sense as well.
So then you sold Oasis about 2.5 years ago, but you're still involved today?
I am. They were kind enough to kind of keep me on and let me consult on a few things. I still run a couple or on a couple committees, our franchisee advisory council, and we have a couple culture clubs within both organizations. And that's one of the things that I'm proudest of was the culture that we had built, not just at the Cleaning Authority, but especially here at Oasis. And so I want to make sure whether we're purchased by somebody or running it ourselves, that culture remains strong within the system itself.
How many locations are there today?
We're at 159 locations in some like 42 or 44 states, 96 individual franchisees. Some of them have multiple territories at this point.
I'm going to guess at least one of the appealing things about this particular company style, or what it is you guys, franchise opportunity is what I want to call it, is the fact that it's low capital, low overhead to get started, right? You don't need a big facility, you don't need an office space, you don't need a build out. Am I right? And what else is there that's so appealing?
100% accurate. We're what's considered a lower investment opportunity. We're somewhere between 90 and 120,000, somewhere in there, all in. But to your point, yeah, they work out of their home, especially initially. Some will eventually get an office when they're scaling their staff in 2, 3, 4, 5 people or so. But for the most part, for the first year or two, working out of their home. So overhead's very low. And until you start bringing on employees to really start scaling the business, it's pretty straightforward.
So you're spending some time still working with some committees. How many hours are you kind of working with the business? How many hours is sort of in this semi-retirement phase? How are you kind of splitting your time?
Well, I got to be careful answering that question, not knowing who's going to listen to this, especially my leadership team and stuff. So I right now I'm averaging a couple hours a day working on my committees, and also an hour or so, a couple hours a week with the International Franchise Association Board of Directors, working with them to benefit franchising and continue to educate and help people learn and understand the franchise model.
Yeah, you were recently elected to the International Franchise Association Board. Why was that something you were interested in, and what does the work look like there? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's kind of a consulting gig as well, but I'm a firm believer that as you've been blessed, it's important to give back. And franchising has done so much for me and my family for, 35 years or so. I thought this was a great opportunity to do just that, to give back, to help people get into franchising or learn and understand, educate people. I did a lot of franchise development, so I do speak for the IFA occasionally on franchise development and building successful franchise organizations. And how do you do that? How do you build that infrastructure? And I love doing stuff like that. I love the opportunity to give back.
So what kinds of organizations are in the IFA? Are they like senior care, home care? Is it sort of, I think of franchise, I think of like McDonald's and Subway. Are the big guys in there too?
They are, yeah. It's franchising as a whole. So the IFA is really made up of three components. Franchisors like Oasis and multitudes of others. I think IFA has a couple thousand or so franchise organizations that are part of their group, but also franchisees. They started bringing those in 20 years ago or so. So franchisees, but also the suppliers, right? The suppliers of the franchise systems, from software companies, from PEO companies, and everything in between, software companies, insurance companies, everything that a franchisor may need, and franchisee as well, in their running business. So that's kind of what the IFA is made up of.
So for people listening that might be interested in learning more about the franchise opportunity at Oasis, where do they go?
Website, probably the best, thecleaningauthority.com. Very easy to find us. We got a great team.
You did say cleaningauthority.com. I think there's a little slip there.
That was too many years there, I guess. Oasis. Oasis Senior Advisors.com. Apologies, yes. So I got an amazing team. The development team, Jim Stumpf, runs that, and a great group of individuals that really very selective of who we bring in. Just because they can sign a check and fog a mirror does not mean they're going to be Oasis franchisees. Very stringent process to get through, because we really do want people that are a good fit for us, and we're a good fit for them. OasisSeniorAdvisors.com, the best way to reach out to us.
And so obviously there's a financial component that they have to qualify for, but you mentioned earlier that people who are sort of on the more caring and compassionate side of the spectrum are a good fit. Like, how do you go about sussing that out?
We do use some tools. Predictive Index is one of them. We'll run them through a course of tests and stuff to kind of get an understanding of where they're coming from. That can be very helpful. But truthfully, it's being with them on the phone and spending hours with them on the phone, understanding who they are, what their desire is, what are their attributes, so to speak, that would make a good fit for Oasis. And that's really the best. It's human contact and really working with them for hours on the phone.
Are there particular career paths that you've seen that are sort of a common denominator in the folks that end up being a good fit for you? Not really. And I alluded to, when we first started, we thought we knew exactly who we wanted as a franchisee, but we have everything from, housewives to doctorates, people, that are doctors that come in. We have a bunch of nurses that have come through our process that are fantastic, and everything in between. So there's not necessarily a pattern or a specific background that says this is going to make a great franchisee. It really starts with the heart for us. Well, and you said you've got over 100 locations already, 40 some states. Are there particular geographies that are wide open or locked off? Like somebody's listening, like, oh, I'm here. I wonder if there's an opportunity. Yeah, it's kind of the nature of the beast is as you get larger, our size of almost 160, we're sold out in a handful of states, Maryland, just about sold out in Ohio and some of those others, but still have a lot of space in California, a lot of space in Texas, New York. We still have hundreds of territories still available, but so only a few are all sold out, I guess. Are there any states that are sort of locked out for, I don't know, any regulatory reasons? Right now, just one, Nevada, negates us from doing business in Nevada. We hope that changes on down the road when they see that all we do is help people, not trying to take advantage of anybody. So hopefully that changes. But right now, just Nevada. So I want to talk a bit about some of the nonprofit causes that you're involved with, Tim. We've got the Alzheimer's Association, cystic fibrosis. There's other children's charities. What? Why is this work so important to you?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that opportunity to give back, and franchising and life has blessed me very, very well, and I think that's important to use some of your abilities, whether it be financial or your business background or acumen that can help in those situations. But I think it is. I think we as a human race need to do more and be able to do more with those that really need our help when you can. And Alzheimer's Association, we do that company wide specifically. And last year alone, we participated in, 50 or 60 walk to end Alzheimer's across the country, raising almost $75,000 for Alzheimer's. So that's a big one. Cystic fibrosis, they've come such a long way in the 15, 20 years that I've been helping support that in getting so many cures for CF, which is fantastic. And then the children's charities. This is an easy one for me because it's all centered around wine. So, and in the wine industry with the Naples Winter Wine Fest and out here in Napa for the Vintner Barrel Auction and stuff, all of those benefiting children's charities across the country in those local markets. So I really have a fine tune to that as well.
I had to plead ignorance on cystic fibrosis. Can you explain what that is and then some of the advancements that you've seen in the 20 years that you've been working with the association?
So CF is, for the most part, there are a couple different ones, but the main one is it's a lung infection, basically, where it builds up mucus within the lungs and it's just impossible to get it out, basically, in a layman's terms. And so what the advancements have been is these new drugs that have been coming down the pike have just been life-changing, to say the least. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but in the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've got a handle on almost 90% of the different types of cystic fibrosis and helping them with cures and advancement to that level. So it's amazing of what has happened. And to be able to watch that transition over the years has been fantastic.
Is this a viral or a bacterial thing, or does it come in both forms?
Both forms, yeah. The viral is the tough one.
Yeah. Fascinating. Tim, I'd like to shift gears here for a second and talk about a serious challenge that you've overcome. Maybe it's something personal, maybe it's professional. Can you kind of open up, give us a view into that? Tell us what you learned and how you got through it.
Be happy to. And this is kind of an easy one, but it's the hardest one. And we had this pandemic thing called COVID a few years back. I think everybody would remember that. And it was, to say the least, crushing for Oasis. Because of the pandemic, we were not able to go about our normal course of business. Our model was all about getting into hospitals, getting into skilled nursing, getting into communities, getting into assisted living, and we were locked out. And so we couldn't go and do our normal course of business as we had planned. So it was, like I said, kind of crushing to some extent. What do we do? Because the families still needed our help, right? They were still transitioning out of hospitals into assisted living, but there was nobody there to be able to walk them through as we had done in the past. And I got to give great kudos to our franchisees and our support team that figured it out, that changed the business model to allow us to continue to do business. And within 8-10 months of the beginning of the pandemic, we were back to pre-pandemic numbers. And again, it's a credit to those folks for figuring out ways to do business when we were locked out of everywhere. And we were doing things like our franchisees are passing iPads through a window at an assisted living to be able to show a family the inside of the community. So it was challenging time, to say the least, but we got through it with flying colors. And And I'll tell you, there were a few months there when and I just wasn't sure how we were going to make it. And again, credit to those, my support team and my franchisees got it figured out, changed our model, and got us back up and operational. So
I appreciate you sharing that, Tim. I could tell obviously there's a lot of emotion behind that and brings up a lot of really hard times, not only for the families, for the seniors, but, for you and the Oasis team. And you guys had built this incredible company providing an amazing service. You had a lot of really good momentum, a lot of people whose livelihoods depended on this, right? And it felt like in the blink of an eye that could all disappear. You gave a lot of credit to your team for being able to sort of figure out what the new model looked like in a relatively short period of time. You mentioned passing the iPad through the window, so you could show some imagery of what was there. What were some of the other key foundational changes that you guys made?
yeah, we came up with a great marketing scheme during this time as well. One call, many solutions, and from that, really, it was educating the hospitals and our lead sources, basically educating them to say we're still here, we're still able to do the work and help the families, and that was the biggest, I think, motivator for our franchisees, helping the lead sources say we're still here and can help you, can still help the families. It's different, but we can still do it, and that was, I think, the biggest understanding. To do that is, one call, many solutions. Just call us, and we can help with a multitude of issues that family and senior are going through right now.
Probably doing like a lot more like virtual walkthroughs and Zoom calls and that kind of a thing.
Yeah, we all got very proficient in Zoom. That's for darn sure. Because you had to. We weren't meeting necessarily the families face to face. We're Zoom calling with them. We're showing them videos of communities that folks have sent us, or what have you. It helped us build a huge video library of so many communities across the country to at least show families what the community looks like. You can't walk through it. And then we also had the challenge of, quarantine. When a senior went into a community, they were quarantined for 14 days, couldn't leave their room. And so, the families going, well, gosh, what do we do? We can't see mom or dad for 2 weeks or what. It was nuts. So,
and hard on the resident too, right? Because that's the time that they want to become acclimated and familiar with their surroundings and kind of meet their neighbors, and that's a couple of weeks of a really hard transition. Yeah. And what's really impressive about what you said is, not only did you guys kind of figure out a new model, but it was in less than a year, you were back to pre-pandemic levels of sales, of being able to help a number of seniors. When did you guys see sort of things come back to normal in terms of what you could do with your process?
Yeah, it was, and it varied by state, and it really did. New York was on lockdown much longer and California much longer than any other states in the U.S. So some of our franchisees were really almost back to normal in 8-10 months. We're still wearing masks, but at least the with the vaccines that came through, that certainly helped. If you were vaccinated, we had to show proof of vaccination. We were then allowed in. It was a slow process, but it was, some states were 6-8 months. Some of the other states were a year, maybe a little bit longer, until we could get back to doing our normal routine.
Do you still lean on some of the new processes that you guys had to come up with during COVID, or was it more of, hey, when we can get back to in-person stuff, that's the better way. We're going to go back to the old way of doing things?
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, there are certainly some things. I talked about the video library that we now have for a lot of our communities. That's something that is still utilized today. And also it helped us revamp some pieces of our software, Oasis IQ, to meet some of those challenges that if you can't meet a family face-to-face, and if you can't, we also have a digital side as well for Oasis, where even though we may not have a franchisee in some part of the country, we can still help them. We have advisors that can work with them over the phone and still direct, because again, we have relationships with thousands of communities all over the U.S. that we can still help place, even though we physically aren't in that area.
Tim, how would you describe your superpower?
People. I think that's not necessarily call it a superpower, but I do love people. I love being around people. I like helping people. As I mentioned many times, giving back, making a difference in people's lives, whether we're bringing on a new franchisee, changing their life, whether we're helping a senior and family. But I think, when you talk about the secret of my business acumen or whatever, it's really following the golden rule. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. It's not tough to do it in business. Just be kind. And do the right thing. It's not tough, but good things tend to happen, and it's help, I think, make me successful, and just treating people right. Just do the right thing.
It's clear that's really important to you. There was some more emotion that came up there. What's behind that, Tim?
So I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve sometimes. Obviously, but it is, and it's so frustrating sometimes to see organizations or companies that lose sight of the main focus of people, and what that means, how they got to where they are, because it was on the shoulders and backs of other people sometimes. There's no way I get to where I am without my amazing team. They're special people, and they have built me up, and I'm just so blessed to be in the chair I'm in.
I get the sense now. Your heart is just overflowing with gratitude. I think that I'm understanding that's sort of the big emotion that's coming up. Yeah,
100%. I'm so grateful for what I have been allowed to do and blessed to do through this life of franchising and through business. And to me, again, it's all about the people, and a lot of people helped me get here.
In my experience, oftentimes like attracts like. And so when you put that sort of energy and people understand that part of your personality out there, you're going to, draw people to you that have similar values. And I think that just enriches the entire life experience and working experience in this case. So
100%.
Yeah, tip of the hat to you for that. Tim, if you had to recommend a resource to our listeners, something that's been helpful for you, a book, a course, a podcast, something that's helped you grow as a person, grow as a business leader, what would it be?
It's a great question. I'll give you a couple. One of the most iconic books I think ever written, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, it goes back to my whole nature, I think, to some extent. It's still a fantastic book. And then if you're looking at the franchise side of what I think, a friend of mine put out, Rick Bizio, a book called The Educated Franchisee, a fabulous book, helping people understand whether they're right for franchising or not. Those are two fabulous books. And I also love the Spencer book, Who Moved My Cheese? That's a great people book as well.
What do you get out of that one? Who Moved My Cheese?
Again, business is all relationship driven, right? And that book specifically, I think, helps you understand how important relationships are in everything you do, especially in the business world. And the better you can build those relationships and relate to people, the stronger you're going to be.
How about any particular daily practices that either help you get started in your day or keep you on track, keep you centered as you're going?
Yeah, a couple things. Very religiously based, and so I do try to read some Bible every day. I try to meditate on a regular basis. I do Pilates, as my wife likes to chuckle. But I think just starting your day with 15, 20 minutes of just thought, right? Just let the day begin, whether you're meditating or reading something. I think that's just a great way to start and center your day, of just take some time to breathe and before you kick off your day.
Why does your wife chuckle at the Pilates?
Well, she's an instructor, and if you'd seen me on a reformer, you'd chuckle too. But anyway.
She at least gave you an A for effort?
She does. She does.
Tim, curious if this rings true for you. In my life, sometimes I look back at something that I consider to be a mistake in the moment. Slip up, man, I wish I had that to do over again. I beat myself up over it. But then as I get further along in life, I look back at that moment with some gratitude and appreciation, because while I didn't understand it in the moment, I was learning a really valuable lesson, or it helped to kind of push my life in a little bit of a different direction. Do you have any moments like that you can think of?
Yeah, there's certainly a couple. And the first thing that comes to my mind is of things I could have done better is, some longer term employees that it was time to cut ties with. And I certainly, looking back now, could have handled that so much better in that transition. I kind of kicked myself. But to your point, then I go back and I said, that was a great learning opportunity for me as well, of how not to do that again. There's certainly relationships that I wish I would have handled better. Hindsight's always 20/20, but it was a great learning experience of how not to do that in the future, and to really understand, a better tack to take.
Can you add a little more specificity, maybe something that you would have done differently if you had it to do over again there?
Yeah, I think I would have hired differently initially for Oasis. I think it would have kind of beefed up my upper management team more quickly and not tried to do so much on my own. I think we could have grown more rapidly and a little stronger had I done that early on. So again, a mistake, but learned from that and did bring on some great higher level leadership later on, and made a huge difference in Oasis for sure.
So from your decades of experience in building teams, Tim, I'm curious to hear what you found that's helped you both from a recruiting and a retention standpoint.
I think patience more than anything else. You have a need in your organization, and sometimes we're just kind of, you got to fill that spot. You got to, hire quick or whatever. And I think that's just the wrong attitude to have. And the patience, I think I've learned that over the years of just make sure it's the right fit of that next person you're going to bring in, because it's going to have an impact, not just on your support team, but the people they're supporting, right? The franchisees or whomever. And so that patience piece is sometimes so difficult to learn. And that certainly, I think for me, was something over the years kind of got better at.
What's the best decision you've ever made for your business, Tim?
Bringing on my president, John Benbrook, and my chief operations person, Cece Childry. That has helped put Oasis where it is today.
A lot of gratitude there again, I can tell. You're swimming in it. I appreciate you showing up and sharing that. That's awesome.
You bet.
What do you think the future of Oasis looks like? Where's it going?
Well, I think it's huge. And I'm extremely biased, but, I was bought 2.5 years ago by a company called Silver Assist. And I'll tell you, you've heard so many horror stories of companies coming in and changing this and changing that. And I'll tell you, they have been true to their word. Silver Assist, what I loved about it and why I decided to partner with them was their philosophy, right? They want to be the go-to company for seniors and their families, not just for Oasis, but we've got a multitude of services that we provide, from financial concierge services to moving to whatever that senior may need. we have that all under one roof and can direct them. Even if it may not be a company that is under the roof, we can at least give them direction as to where they can turn. We have aid and attendance to help military families find more funds for that. And so when you ask the question, what does Oasis hold in the future? Because of the relationship we have with Silver Assist and what they're doing in the senior space itself, it's just staggering. And it's very exciting to see what we're doing. I mean, we are literally empowering people to navigate the complex realities of aging. And
it's a big deal. I mean,
it really is. Of what we're going to do.
I mentioned before, I've been in the fortunate position of not having to yet help either one of my parents navigate this, but certainly watched grandparents, go through some of this, and grandmother in particular, who played a big part in helping to raise me. And these are people that there's a special place in our hearts for, and to watch them needs that extra help and not understand what to do. They were the people that helped us,
No question.
And now it's our turn, and we don't know what to do because we haven't been through this before. And so to be able to have access to somebody like Oasis, that's a big deal. It's a huge leverage point that can really help us to help those that we love.
Yeah, the feedback we get from our families and seniors of how our advisors help them through this process is, it's mountainous of the great feedback we get and the kudos, and never received a bad review on Google ever. So
what?
Yeah,
that's not possible.
All we do is help people. So
but there's a lot of angry people out there that. You wore blue and they don't like the color blue, so they're leaving you a bad review. That's quite a streak, Tim. I almost don't believe what I heard. I want you to repeat it.
So just as I say that, there'll be a Google review pop up that says, "Hey, Oasis did this," but it's true. I mean, if it's not 100%, it's 99.9% positive Google reviews, because all we're trying to do is help, and there's no cost. So it's if we can't help them, which is rare, they're not hurt in any way. So
and they've learned something along the way. At least you've been able to provide them with some education.
Yeah. For sure.
Wow, that's impressive. You've talked before about the big emphasis on tech, both for Cleaning Authority as well as Oasis Senior Advisors. What, if anything, are you guys doing with AI presently?
Yeah, we have a whole section within Silver Assist that is really focusing on what that can do for our business. And I've seen, we have a senior leadership, and so we go through some of the things that they're working on, and it's just mind-boggling of what that's going to be able to do. I've already talked to the extent of my tech knowledge, so I can't go much deeper, but we're working on that on a daily basis of how it can help not just our franchisees, but really help our seniors through some of this process through AI. And it's amazing stuff of what's going on.
I'm going to sort of connect some dots here, because in talking with some other folks, there's a lot of excitement around being able to use it to not only, really to make the job that your advisors are doing more efficient, so that they can help more people and that they can provide them with greater level of assistance face to face. I don't know if there's a lot of sort of forms that get filled out typically in your line of work, but what I'm hearing from other folks is this reduces the time sort of somebody spends sort of, behind the computer, and more time that they can spend face to face with somebody really adding value there.
It will, and how it's going to impact us kind of specifically is in that matching idea. Our software matches now, but just imagine adding in AI to that with that component of then helping us match the senior on an exponential level.
Yeah. What's something that you wish more people knew about your industry, Tim?
That we're here. First and foremost, you mentioned it earlier, Anthony, of, I could just go on to Google and let my fingers do the walking. And so many still do that. And that's the biggest challenge we have of, most people don't realize we're here and can help for free. And so that certainly is still our biggest challenge of getting our name out there to say, we can help you through this process. You don't have to do it alone.
What's something you do for fun outside of work?
I play tennis. I love being on a tennis court and getting a great workout. And I'm an enophile. I do love wine and learning about wine, and I just think it's fascinating. So those are my two big hobbies.
I love it. Just one more question for you, Tim. But before I ask it, I want to do two things. First, for all the listeners today, take a moment, just pause for a second. Go ahead and hit the follow button on your favorite podcast app. We've had a great conversation here with Tim Evankovich from Oasis Senior Advisors. And I want you to get more wonderful content like this. Tim, I also want to let people know either the best way to get in touch with you directly, to follow your story, or that of the company. What would that be?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. Not just our website, but me personally, Tim at oasissenior.advisors.com. So I'm happy to talk with anybody on franchising or Oasis, or kind of be an open book. I've got a little extra time on my hands right now. So always happy to again, work with people and give back a little bit.
That's generous. So last question for you, Tim. You and we reconnect in a year, and you're really excited. You're celebrating something big. What's that thing you're celebrating 1 year from now?
I got to believe it's going to be the success of Oasis, and with the hat of Silver Assist on top of us. The sky's the limit of where this place is going to go. And it excites me every day of what we're going to.
There's that gratitude again.
Yep.
No, I love it. And do you see it being a situation where, some of these different entities under the, what was it called? Silver Assist. Under the Silver Assist umbrella are going to send referrals back and forth to each other? Could you see some of these just sort of getting woven in together, where Oasis is now directly offering some of the services that are under the Silver Assist umbrella? Do you have any sense of how that'll play out yet?
Absolutely, we're doing it already. With our financial concierge services, and with aid and attendance, we'll cross refer. We have a real estate portion as well within our group. Can help sell a home, buy a home, whatever, through that process. So yeah, and cross referring is going to be a huge piece of that.
Excellent. Well, Tim Evankovich from Oasis Senior Advisors, I want to be the first to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure was all mine, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me on. And sorry I wear my emotions on my sleeve too often.
That is never something you should apologize for here. Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.